There you go. Okay. Okay. For what promises to be a truly momentum occasion for our company, our employees, our more than 600. We are very pleased to welcome back the Minister of National Defence, and a special welcome to our Prime Minister, the Right Honourable Mark Carney. Minister McGuinty, you have been a tremendous champion and of the important work being done. Support and your continued confidence in our team. Class products, and we never lose sight of who we build them for. It is now my great pleasure to invite to the podium David McGuinty.
Good morning, everyone. Bonjour à toutes et à tous. Prime Minister Carney, members of the Canadian Armed Forces, distinguished guests, thank you. For decades are being challenged. Conflicts are growing more. Character of warfare at extraordinary speed. As the competition on the battlefield itself. We must be prepared to defend our have the capabilities that they need, not years from now. What this government is doing, your government is doing. De défense, et nous veillons à ce que chaque dollar soutienne les travailleurs canadiens et bâtisse depends on the strength of Canadian industry. On Canadian build, sustain and innovate right here at home. Defense means investing in Canada, and a government that is a stronger Canadian economy. It is now my pleasure to introduce has brought all of us here today. Prime Minister.
Thank you.
Dave. Thank you, Dave. Thank you all. Heather. Before I begin, I do want to upended, are being upended by the wildfires across this country. On behalf of all Canadians, everyone in this room, all Canadians across this country, I want to thank people safe. And in the presence of the Minister the Canadian Interagency Forest Fire Centre is providing helicopters parts, and will stand ready and will be providing additional assistance. We're here today in London at the headquarters, not just the headquarters, but the factory, not just the tour that only began to scratch the surface of this amazing together for that tour. Thank the whole team at GDLS. Armored vehicles that roll into service around the world. Where I want to begin. I want to begin with the people who depend to protect North America, to support deployed now across a single, very large craft. In the Canadian Arctic, we now have 365 sea, air, and space. Our forces are working response. And in Latvia recently, announced that we are extending and expanding our leadership now. That presence, that service, matched by best-in-class capabilities. Face à des menaces grandissantes que l'on pense attaque, ajoutant à sonic. And in this more dangerous and divided just by the strength of our values, but also the value the conviction behind our announcement just last week in Halifax. KMS, the largest defense procurement in Canadian history. Same conviction, deploying the first of 15 river radar systems, acquiring new long-range precision, a secure, sovereign, low Earth orbit communication. La Canadienne a besoin de nouveaux véhicules parce qu'elle est à l'étranger. Des véhicules qui sont vieillissantes, conçues pour protéger nos soldats au combat et the Canadian Armed Forces need but for decades to come. And to that end, Minister, it is through this partnership, our government will invest nearly $2 billion over $550 vehicles. Designed to keep soldiers protected, mobile, and mission-ready. ELS Canada has made vehicles that supported the capacity announced last week the provision of another 30 against Russia. Thank you, and thank you. The complete order that we're announcing today will continue that legacy. Every single one will be built right here create and sustain over 6,000 high-paying supply chain of Canadian ingenuity, skill, and craftsmanship who build the military-grade cable and wire harness assemblies armor that helps protect our troops. The engineers design the thermal imaging systems that allow our soldiers to operate in the toughest conditions. To keep these vehicles mission ready, and many crafted intricately, built by Canadians from British Columbia to armored combat vehicles, and that's part of the core strength of our supply chain. In fact, this company already supports congratulations. You have the women and men of the Canadian Armed Forces and our allies relying on you. You should feel very, very proud of Et dans un monde plus dangereux, assurer sa défense, préserver sa l'acier canadien et le secteur canadien de la fabrication. L'économie canadienne plus forte, plus indépendante et plus résiliente. Strategy in action. This is a bold plan to get our armed forces companies and to put hundreds of billions of dollars that we have a simple framework: build, partner, buy. Directing procurement to Canadian firms that have now, there will be many cases where we don't have all those capabilities. Trusted allies. And that's what we're doing with an announcement. It's an early warning and control system that helps detect and deter. Contract includes a commitment to support 3,000 Canadian jobs. Is manufactured here in Canada. That fleet's already used the Global Eye as its preferred aircraft. Buying equipment from allies, but with clear conditions. That's the strategy behind the submarine procurement. 100% of the value of the investment must be matched here. Will have by far the greatest economic impact. And I want to say a few words about another aspect of today's announcement, in which we're building a stronger Canadian defence industry. Strengthen Canada's defence and industrial base through long-term, predictable partnerships with the best in Canadian industry. Canadian companies like GDLS Canada to work more closely with our government to build those sovereign capabilities. The equipment that our armed forces needs. Companies selected as strategic partners commit to invest in Canadian research and development, the kind of R&D that happens right here, to grow domestic supply chains, the kind of supply chains that GDLS Canada has, and hire Canadian workforce and, wherever possible, union workforce. And I want to give a shout out to Unifor for their contribution. And what happens in return is that the federal government will act as an anchor customer, will accelerate approvals, and will open doors to new export markets. Commitment's simple. When Canadian companies build for Canada, Canada will build right alongside them. We launched this framework less than 2 months ago at CanSec, and today we're announcing, as you know, GDLS Canada will be our first strategic partner. That's the kind of decisive and quick action that Canadians expect and this moment demands. Now, it's been nearly 50 years right here in London that GDLS Canada began building vehicles that has carried Canada's strength around the world. Vehicles that turn Canadian steel and ingenuity into Canadian security. Today, we're renewing that strength We're ensuring it's built in Canada by Canadians. Nous allons réinvestir pour rebâtir et réarmer les forces canadiennes. Nous accordons aux membres de nos forces armées la plus importante augmentation salariale depuis une génération, car leur rémunération doit être à la hauteur de leurs responsabilités. Nous avons déjà atteint l'objectif de 2% fixé par l'OTAN en matière de dépenses militaires pour la première fois depuis la chute du mur du Berlin. Et cet objectif ne constitue pas un plafond pour les investissements du Canada dans le domaine de la défense, mais plutôt une référence. Notre cadre budgétaire prévoit déjà des mesures visant à consacrer 4% de notre PIB à la défense d'ici la fin de cette décennie. Nous avons également lancé la toute première stratégie industrielle de défense du Canada et mis sur pied l'Agence de l'investissement pour la défense afin de réduire les délais, de renforcer les partenariats et de répondre aux besoins de nos forces armées et de notre économie. Canada is stepping up to protect ourselves and our allies. And if we're going to deter Russian aggression in the Baltic states and across Europe, if we're going to ensure a just and lasting peace in Ukraine, if we are to assert our full sovereignty in the Arctic, and if we're to defend and promote our values of freedom, democracy, peace, we must do so from a position of strength. If we want a stronger world, if we want a safer world, we need a stronger Canada. Let me finish with this. Every day, the women and men serving in the Canadian Armed Forces make Canada stronger. They deserve the very best equipment that this country can build. And the very best this country can build is made right here at GDLS. Canada, thank you for what you do, and I look forward to your questions.
Hello, sir. Nathaniel Dove from Global News. Prime Minister, we're looking for more information on the deal to open the Gordie Howe Bridge. Canada spent $6.4 billion to build it. Is the Canadian debt repayment on the bridge included as expenses before profits are split with the U.S.?
Well, let me say, first of all, that we're very pleased that the prospect of the bridge reopening later this month, or opening later this month. This is good for Canada, good for the United States. Both in the short term and the long term. What we have with the agreement with the U.S. Is as follows. And let me start with what it isn't. It's not splitting the tolls of the bridge. It is an agreement for 15 years to split net revenues. Splitting of tolls, any sharing of the toll revenue won't happen until all of the debt is repaid. We will split net revenues over the course of the first 15 years. And those net revenues are after operational costs. So it's manning the toll booths, it's maintenance, it's snow removal, a series of other operational costs. We expect that after those costs, for the first few years, net revenues will be modest. In fact, we expect them to be negative, as traffic ramps up. So negative to modest in the first few years. And what's been designed is an alignment of incentives so that when the splitting begins, all of the portions that go to the U.S. government will be reinvested in economic development, regional economic development in the area, the U.S. side of the area, obviously, which is pro-cyclical. It reinforces, more traffic, higher revenues, more investment, and that's the way it moves forward. The underlying agreement that we have with Michigan remains the same. And so no sharing of tolls until all the debt is repaid. So it's a good deal for both sides. It gets things moving, and that's in the spirit of today's announcement, which is to get things moving.
Are you able to provide more information about the deal? Some sources to us and to Bloomberg and Reuters are saying it's a 50% split, I guess, once the sharing starts happening. And if this is a Canadian project, why did you have to start giving? Why did you decide to start giving some of the revenue away?
The first thing is you quoted the overall amount of the capital investment of the project, around $6.5 billion. What we're talking about is very modest relative to the size of that. Okay, that's the first thing, just to give a sense. The second is that, as I'm going to repeat myself, but I think it's an important point, that it's aligned, the incentives are aligned here because the reinvestment in regional economic development on the Michigan side, mainly the Michigan side, that's obviously good for Michigan, but it's also good for Canada because it's going to reinforce the traffic. So we see the incentive alignment as a reasonable discussion. It's a good deal for Canada, good for the U.S., and it's great for both countries to have this bridge open, and we're looking forward to it.
Is it 50%?
Thank you. Next question.
Mr. Prime Minister, Jerry Dewan from CTV News London. This region has among the highest unemployment levels of anywhere across the country. How are we looking to use this to address those concerns?
Yeah, well, my caucus colleagues from the region are here. We are very focused on exactly this issue. Part of the answer is in today's announcement. It's providing not just the scale of the investment, but also the certainty of a partnership. So longer-term certainty, which of course is going to help GDLS invest and build out as well. And this is where some of the international travel that we've been doing, the international meetings we've had, the deepening of our partnership with NATO, our agreement, for example, with Europe to be part of their defense procurement, the work we're doing with Gulf allies. This is where it starts to come together because it reinforces the efforts of the company which has always been very successful in exports. About 80% of the production goes for export from here, but it's reinforcing that opportunity in this more dangerous world. So that's a component in the defense sector, the defense industrial sector. At the same time, we need to help build out the supply chain in this sector and other sectors. So, for example, Minister, an example. This is one of many examples, but with tool and die makers in the region who can be suppliers moves forward. Of course, as well, we are with them on getting the right deal for that, and more broad diversification. Tariff response fund, which is going directly back in here, where we're with the scale of the challenge. There's a common thread to what we're doing, is we're focusing on what we can control. Solutions with other export partners that help and beyond.
Most of the challenges in this region stem from
one of the things that we've been doing, and it's starting to come in investment in plant and equipment and manufacturing. In fact, not just plant and equipment, months, the most attractive tax rate. So that means plant and equipment, it means R&D, it means called. But when you wrap that all together, it puts us in a is less than half the G7 average. Critical mass that way.
Thank you. Next question.
I guess I just wanted to start by clarifying something you mentioned. Additional new 6,000 jobs, or for example, are the employees?
But what we're getting is you get the certainty of those who are actually running the business. But I can tell you from my and the quality of the product and the relationships that we're that's where you start to see the big increments. But the certainty cements those jobs. The supply chain, what they built out, gets that extra 10,000 across. What?
You're talking about the spin-off effect and the benefit that investment like this. Them, they're finding it hard to sort of like even get into the part.
Yeah. Okay. So the core of your question is something. One of the key elements of a strategic partnership. That can mean joint R&D, but also through RMPs and others to work with companies. National defense wouldn't have done in the past. But one of the things their company on them being Canadian, obviously, and putting them in the room that perhaps had supplied other aspects. They make their decisions accordingly, but providing to protect Canadians, protect our allies, and then making those connections. Building out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next question. Prochaine question.
Much of central Canada is dealing with wildfires and smoke pollution as we believe these current climate conditions are a sign we should lean into our.
Absolutely agree. And it's not leaning, it's those climate targets. We relied too much necessary to reduce emissions. So we've shifted our focus. Core to that is the electricity strategy, which we're currently considering a couple of decades, a grid that's almost 85% clean. the challenges in affordability in various ways. So we need to do it in a We have amongst the lowest electricity costs in the world. We want with major investments, and what you see is are low carbon. So that new oil pipeline, as a 90% of the vehicles on Alberta roads. As another precondition is a carbon market that actually works. Is that theoretically the carbon price is over has fell to about $20. So the effect and we're shifting the approach to make sure that there isn't a gap. And back. Climate is a global issue. We're the only countries, I think we are the only country who's obviously globally get emissions down outside of Canada.
Thank you. Provinces that Alberta is getting a better carbon price under their.
One of the issues that we'll talk about, which is, and you know, its own carbon market linked in with California. So I'm going to put. We've structured the carbon market with Alberta. It does. Given the difference in the price, but it actually creates an ability to have a provinces with parts. So we're not going to announce that or decide that. One Canadian economy. Canadians want one economy, and they want across the country. We need to amp that up. There's progress has been made. Strategy and making major progress on that, and the federal government will put on the table. Thank you.
Last.
Monsieur Carney, qu'est-ce que ça vous fait de voir que le Canada s'éloigne de ses cibles climatiques sous l'action ça vous fait de voir que le nord de l'Ontario brûle en ce moment alors le gouvernement?
Ouais, non, c'est OK. Notre de notre gouvernement, je viens d'arriver. OK, je viens. On a des règles et des lois et des conflits avec nous sommes en train de changer, de mettre l'accent sur l'investissement afin de réduire des stockage de carbone du monde, équivalent de mobile de l'Alberta. On a des réductions importantes, de fonctionnement du marché du carbone en Alberta. On fait des grandes choses afin d'avoir d'investissements et de l'énergie propre. C'est l'action, pas des prohibitions, qui est plus importante.
Comment répondez-vous aux élus américains qui demandent au Canada d'en faire
Une contribution des Américains dans la lutte OK. Maintenant, nous mettons l'accent sur l'investissement. L'énergie éolienne, c'est une. Nos efforts à l'échelle mondiale. C'est la responsabilité de tout le monde, vraiment tout le monde.
Merci. Cela conclut notre conférence de presse. That ends our conference.